So the brothers, you know what the brothers are. They want to talk about, oh, did Canelo just walk away from 40 million? Well, did Wilder walk away from 120 million? The difference is that Canelo made an independent decision as a free agent. Wilder was told by Shelley Finkel and Richard Schaefer that we're not taking the deal. Not that he ain't taking it, that we're not taking the deal. And that he has obligations to other people. So Caleb stopped Vincent Fagenbutz in February of 2020, defending his IBF title. Then there was talk of him defending his IBF belt against Canelo. But Caleb said they're trying to take advantage of him by making him jump out of one training camp into a next. And his body just couldn't handle that. For the last 2 years or so, Caleb has been saying guys like Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith have been sacrificial lambs, given little time to train, called up on short notice for Canelo to abuse them. So he declined the fight and then tells Canelo he'll be ready for September. Now, I know a lot of people ain't going to like this, but Caleb is not the star here. And that's just the truth. You don't go around telling Canelo, I'll be ready in September. It's just not the done thing. Andy Ruiz, he beat Alexander Dimitrenko in April of 2019. In less than 2 months, June the 1st, I believe it was, he defeated Anthony Joshua for the heavyweight championship. So he jumped out of a training camp with Dimitrenko into a training camp for Anthony Joshua. The difference is Andy was all in Eddie Hearn's DMs when Jarrell Miller messed up and the other PBC fighters messed up. Kawanaki, Ortiz. Isn't Luis Ortiz actually managed by Luis de Cubas as well? Like Caleb? Luis de Cubas giving his fighters bad advice as far as I'm concerned. Now, you can be a funny motherfucker and say Andy doesn't train anyway, so he wasn't burdened with the stress of the Dimitrenko training camp going into the Anthony Joshua fight. When Andy did get the belts, then he tried to go on like a diva. He's threatening not to give AJ his rematch, but Eddie had an ironclad rematch clause in there. He wanted to fight in Mexico. You don't want to believe everything you see online, but he was asking for ridiculous sums of money before he got in there with AJ. But at least he got the belts and then acted like a diva. In fact, Andy was lucky that at the time he was way down the pecking order at the PBC. They were favouring Luis Ortiz and Kawanaki as potential opponents for Deontay Wilder after he turned the DAZN deal down. That's what got Andy the fight. If he was prioritised, he wouldn't have got the fight. You know, I'm starting to believe now that they just didn't want Luis Ortiz and Kawanaki to go on another network when they can keep them on that side of the street and feed them to Deontay Wilder. And in the process, Kawanaki and Ortiz missed out on huge paydays, just like Caleb is missing out now. Caleb talked a lot of trash, you know. I'm a 7-figure fighter. So they got to come at me correct. I'm not desperate for the fight. I get 7 figures every time I fight. Well, cool. Now, apparently, they could revisit the negotiations, and maybe they will. And then Caleb won't lose out. However, if the fight is lost, he may find himself having to fight a little harder for them 7 figures. Especially if Fox are going to renew that deal in December. So he might get tossed in there with Benavidez. It's alright beating up Fagenbutz and Mike Lee for 7 figures, defending your IBF title, but the Fox deal / extension is on the line for Al Heyman, I'm guessing so. They might demand Caleb step it up a little and earn that milli. Caleb's energy, for my liking, has been all wrong. And I guess because all of my favourite fighters are old school fighters and they weren't getting opportunities like what Caleb is getting. The type of money Caleb is getting. So I have a little sympathy for him. He could have got that fight before Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith. He's held that IBF belt since, 2019? And hasn't fought anyone of note, in my opinion, since Uzcategui. And that was January 2019. I have to keep reminding myself, though, is that Caleb really had no say in this. He really didn't. Just because PBC fighters talk, it doesn't mean they've got more control than what they allude to. So, I don't know. I'm not privy to what was going down, but Canelo being the cash cow of boxing, and that's what he is. I know some people might not like the clinical definition, but he is the cash cow at the moment. Maybe he thought, you know something, I'm not going to get dicked around by Caleb Plant and Al Heyman. I'm just going to go elsewhere. They're not in a position to tell Canelo when they're going to fight and when Caleb's going to be ready. They can't get the fight done on Independence Day. He's probably saying no. There was talk that they wanted to tie Canelo down to a multi-fight deal. And then Canelo wanted a clause in the contract that if Caleb was injured, that he still gets paid the $40 million guarantee for taking on a substitute opponent. But if Canelo gets sick, Caleb has to wait for him and can't have no tune-up or no form of recourse or anything. Caleb said there was a one-way rematch clause in the contract in Canelo's favour. Now, that was just the diva. That was just the diva. You want to do the fight or not? That was just... And in a way, it couldn't have happened to a more deserving party than the PBC, because they dicked around so much undisputed unifications and cross-promotion fights. And now they've got someone acting like an arsehole now. And they don't like it. Well, at least Caleb doesn't like it. Now you know how the likes of Terence Crawford, Anthony Joshua, Andrade, and many others have felt trying to fight some of the PBC's finest. Remember Broner, how he responded to Eddie Hearn, giving information of the personal details of emails that Eddie sent him about potential contracts, and the Charlos, when they were mocking the pronunciation of TYSON, calling Eddie out his name, talking real reckless. Remember Wilder, nobody's going to buy it, it's trash, nobody wants to buy the app. Remember all that? They've basically made a mockery of cross-promotion fights for at least 3 or 4 years. Maybe it's not all over for Caleb. Maybe he's one of them free agent PBC fighters, you know, a boss. But if that's the case, there's nothing stopping him from just talking to Canelo without Al Heyman. Yeah, right. Al got that pimp hand extended for any subordination from PBC fighters like Caleb. Or I'm enjoying this video. I can't lie. Canelo wanted the upside in the pay-per-view, the Mexican TV rights, the Hennessy sponsorship. You know, because everybody's been talking about egging the face and stuff like that. I mean, like, it's all bullshit. The only thing we should be capping for is the best fighting the best. If you're not getting paid, don't cap for the PBC's money, for Eddie Hearn's money, for Bob Arum's money. Best fight the best at all times. Although Caleb ain't the best though, really, at 168. He ain't one of the best 168 pounders. He just has a strap that they held on to for this particular occasion, thinking this is how they're going to snare Canelo. But it does seem like Canelo was trolling a little today. Perhaps having a little bit of fun. Some of them clauses. I don't know. Has he got a gripe against the PBC or something? Maybe he was trying to show me, yo, I can be a diva too. I can fuck with people. I can troll. You ain't got a monopoly on that. Then okay. The deal has fell apart for now. At least for now. And let's say Canelo was trolling, or let's say he even ducked Caleb. Which he didn't, but let's just entertain it. Caleb's got the nerve to say his bark is bigger than his bite. Look at the opposition Caleb has fought. I question whether it's legacy or money is their real motive. You're the one who was bragging about being a 7-figure fighter, beating the likes of Caleb Truax, Fagan Butts, and Mike Lee. It was always agreed that it was a unification, no rematch for either fighter. Then Canelo flipped the script. The whole object of you getting a fight like this is you making it as easy as possible for Canelo. Like I said, the only points Caleb should bitch about is rehydration clauses and catch weights. He should stand firm on that, agree to a purse that he thinks is suitable for himself, and then go in there and fight. Nobody wants to hear Caleb complaining about Canelo's demands or his diva-ish demands. Nobody wants to hear Caleb questioning Canelo's legacy when we can look at Caleb's resume and his career, and nobody's impressed. Caleb has no sympathizers. There are a few things that have been established in boxing. One is the PBC's practices. Another is Tyson Fury, his lies, his inconsistency. These things have been established. Even hardcore Tyson Fury fans will not try and debate or defend a lot of the crap that Tyson Fury does. As boxing fans, we've just had to accept that if certain fights have to go through the PBC for undisputed or unification, that they're not going to get made. We just had to take it on the chin and accept it. They have no sympathizers outside the demographic of PBC fighters and the fan base they have online who claim that they want to pay $80 for pay-per-views, and then when the pay-per-view numbers come in, they're low as anything because they ain't going out there and buying them. They're streaming the fights illegally. The PBC tried to be slick, you see, holding that IBF belt hostage until Callum went down, Billy went down, and they thought they had the ultimate bargaining chip. Canelo really needs us if he wants to be undisputed. Let that be a lesson to the PBC. Not egg in your face or anything stupid like that, but let that be a lesson. Time waits for nobody. Caleb could have got that fight last year, and the PBC could be promoting him right now as a pay-per-view fighter if he had took his opportunity. What if Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith had beat Canelo? Would you be asking Eddie Hearn for $10 million to unify your belt against them? Caleb didn't deserve this fight. The PBC didn't deserve this. They held the belt hostage and demanded a ridiculous purse for Caleb. He shouldn't be entitled to a bigger purse than Callum or Billy. Why? Because he held his belt hostage. He hasn't done no more than Billy or Callum in his career, in his reign as a super middleweight titleist. His bargaining chip in the whole thing was, I've got the last remaining scrap if you want to be undisputed. 10 million. Nah, 4 million like Callum or 5 million like Billy is what you should get. You ain't done no more than that. And you know what I'm sick of? Is websites like that boxingnews24.com talking about Canelo is carefully picking guys that bring nothing to the table. That some of the more dangerous fighters like David Benavidez, Jamal Charlo, and Gennady Golovkin, who Canelo's fought twice, bring to the table. Canelo's fought Golovkin twice, but you're saying he's ducking him. Why do you talk about Jamal Charlo not challenging Golovkin or Bubo Andrade? Even his own brother said, if I had an opportunity to fight Canelo, I wouldn't be turning it down. His own brother dissed him for turning down the Canelo fight. What about him backtracking on his recent declaration that he was going to fight David Benavidez? But look at the shit this website's writing. They're one of the worst, actually. Why don't you talk about David Benavidez and Caleb Plant being on the same promotional roster, not fighting each other? And as for you Triple G fans, you think you're getting off? Nah, you ain't getting off. Steve Rolls, Zerameta, going absent for the year, waiting for a lucrative fight with Murata in December, which is good business, but this certainly doesn't do anything for his quest to be one of the greatest middleweights as far as I'm concerned. Canelo just broke free from Golden Boy, who he thought was restricting him as a boxer. It looked like he was breaking free from TYSON as well, but no, he was just breaking free from Golden Boy. He's a free agent. He's not going to give that up to Al Heyman for $40 million. Why would he do that? I mean, TYSON ain't asking Caleb to do no 5-fight, multi-fight deal if he goes over to TYSON to fight Canelo. No. So why are you trying to get Canelo to save your company? That's not Canelo's job. He doesn't want to be a PBC fighter. He wants to fight Caleb. Al Heyman makes decisions for the networks that he's putting cards on more than he does the boxers. Wilder turned down $120 million, then made the ridiculous statement alongside Shelley Finkel, I'm betting on myself, to get flattened by a guy who had no belts. Blah, blah, Canelo's a diva, blah, blah. Look, Al Heyman blew Caleb Plant's payday, yeah? If you were watching this situation and you saw Canelo break free from Golden Boy to become a free agent, and you thought that he was going to jump back in another restrictive situation with Al Heyman, you're out of your mind. A one-fight deal on the PBC would have got Caleb Plant his highest payday. Now, the rematch clause, if Caleb won, where would they host the fight? I don't know. They'd have to talk about it, because Fox would definitely want it, and you can understand why. But they've already had one fight out of Canelo. It's not up to Canelo to build up Al Heyman's business, his empire, or Fox's network. It's not Canelo's job to do that. You better pay motherfuckers equity or up it to $100 million. Okay, let's be realistic, yeah? We're saying he walked away from 50 million or 40 million. Put the IBF belt to the side. He could have re-signed with TYSON and got a more lucrative deal without Golden Boy this time around. What was he on? 30 million a fight with the first TYSON contract? He doesn't want to be tied down to anybody. He didn't lose anything. After Plant, who else do they have for him to fight at the PBC? Marcus Brown? Pascal? They've got no 175 pounders of note. Dillion's got to sign with the PBC to get a shot against Wilder. Dillion's not even signed to Eddie Hearn or Matchroom. Neither is Derek Chisora. Kell Brook was a free agent in his last few fights with Matchroom. Devin Haney, he didn't re-sign with DAZN. They have a gentleman's agreement. Just like Bob Arum used to have with Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns. If the business is good here, we'll do business. If we see you can get greater opportunities outside there without trapping yourself into long-term deals with Al Heyman, well, go there and take the money. Take the fight. And they tried to do the same thing with Crawford. You're on the wrong side of the street. You can hate on Canelo all you like. Al Heyman lost Caleb Plant that payday. Caleb's trying to take it out on Canelo, but he knows he's taking it out on the wrong person. He knows that. But Uncle Al got him living in some nice yard more than likely in Tennessee with a good standard of living. Like he said, you're a 7-figure fighter knocking over Fagan Boots, Mike Lee, and scraping past Caleb Truax. He couldn't have got that kind of money anywhere else in the world for that level of opposition. So you've done your deal with Heyman and you've done well out of it. Al Heyman done a great job for Caleb with that miserable resume. A great job putting all that money in your pocket. 7-figure fighter. But now he owns you. So when you want to take it to the next level, forget that. Even though he's blowing this massive payday for me. You notice he listed all of Canelo's demands. TV rights, Hennessy sponsorship, upside on the pay-per-view, rematch clause. He listed all that. All the shit that he was going to submit to anyway. Tell us something from your side of the street that might have upset Canelo. Oh no, we were perfect. Get the fuck out of here. Plant needs to know he was just a pawn in trying to trap Canelo into a PBC deal. He doesn't want to face up to that, but these are the realities. Let's talk about the other narrative that some of these websites and YouTube channels have. Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders are soft touches. Like Benavidez, Caleb Plant, and Charlo are some well beaters. Based on what? Their birth certificate? I think there's a lot of people in America who think just on their birth certificate that they're better fighters than fighters from other countries. We've never seen Jamal fight Billy Joe or Callum Smith. So how do you know? Avni Yildirim got robbed against Anthony Durrell, who's one of your top 168 pounders in the PBC. And when he fought Canelo and Chris Eubank, he got obliterated. Anthony Durrell's fought better names than Caleb Plant. Caleb talking about it's disrespectful to compare him to Billy Joe Saunders. Based on what? What have you did? Who have you fought? This is delusion. Based on postcodes. We can't have that in boxing. We just can't have that. And don't get me wrong, I've seen British boxing fans do the same thing. Elevate British fighters because they're from a similar postcode to themselves. I've seen them do it. And I've put them in check. And I've been very unpopular for it as well. Caleb, I mean, you need to go eat a couple of them plant-based burgers and a chamomile tea. Calm down. But his fight was never going to come off on the PBC. That's the bottom line. You can't dictate to Canelo. And until Caleb learns that, you're never going to fight Canelo. The only way he's going to fight Canelo is if he says, look, let me go do my own thing, talk to Canelo, go on DAZN, talk to Eddie Hearn. The fight's not going to happen. Bottom line. The more I think about it, we're only getting one side of the story. Am I being led to believe that Canelo was going to get a one-fight deal, 40 million up front, upside of the pay-per-view, bash up Caleb, and then walk back to DAZN? We're not going to pay Canelo all that money and then pay Caleb 10 million. They know Caleb ain't worth 10 million. Now, you might be a PBC fanatic and believe that Al Heyman would pay Caleb 10 mil up front just like that without a whole lot of incentive to do so. But it's not happening. Caleb ain't worth 10 mil. A one-off payment for 40 mil for Canelo in a fight is very unlikely to lose. Very unlikely. Very unlikely. The reality is Caleb is not a hot commodity in boxing. They don't have that kind of belief or faith in Caleb. They just don't. What does he do? In the ring, outside the ring, to raise the profile of the sport. What is it Caleb has? Except the IBF belt. There's only one way the PBC could play this, and that's let Caleb go over to DAZN, try and beat Canelo, then obviously there's going to be a rematch clause involved, try and beat him again, and then come back over to the PBC, and then you could transfer all that success into Caleb being a pay-per-view star. That's the only chance you have. But as for negotiating with Canelo, there is no negotiation with Caleb and Canelo. There is none. There is none. You start at zero. All negotiation is Canelo. Is Canelo, Canelo, Canelo. Caleb doesn't have no negotiation starting point or end point. I know you don't like what I'm saying. That's the truth, though. It's just the simple truth. You tried to hold the IBF belt hostage, but the government came out and told the terrorists basically shoot the hostage. He's no use to us. Now what? This situation is no different to the Anthony Joshua Kawanaki situation, the Anthony Joshua Luis Ortiz situation. Simple as that. You're telling me that if Caleb had the option or the authority, he wouldn't have walked over the other side of the street and got his $10 million. It's not his decision. It's been taken out of his hands. But some of you who are Canelo haters, you're not going to ask yourself, who would prevent this guy who earns $1 million purses from getting a $10 million purse? Because it wasn't Canelo. Whoever said we've got to have the fight on Fox screwed Caleb out of his purse. Conor Ben got the coronavirus. Are they doing a bubble anymore? How are they getting coronavirus like that? Wasn't he in a bubble? Wasn't he tested before he went in the bubble? What sense does it make abandoning the bubble with so many fighters are going down with COVID, cancelling fights? Wasn't he vaccinated? I have a feeling that they seem to be having a big party there. I'm seeing boxers, whatever celebrities there swanning around with no mask. Has Conor been mingling? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. A lot of people were on the fence with Conor taking on Granadas. Granadas is better than Sammy Vasquez. COVID is very convenient for cold feet in boxing. Let me just say that. Tyson Fury is another one. We can't totally count it out that he's got coronavirus, but with all the lies and pullouts throughout his career, big question marks. Let's just say that. There's definitely a rift between Bob Arum and Tyson Fury. Bob's just thrown Tyson under the bus recently. Nobody knew that Fury only took one injection until Bob informed us. Threw him under the bus. And then today, I'm hearing Bob was saying he was screaming on Team Fury for not having the 2 injections. They were unprofessional. Team Wilder are not to blame. Team Fury's to blame. Wilder was fully vaccinated with his 2 shots. It should be happening for October. I'm not going to start saying, oh, the fight's not happening, because I don't know. But it wouldn't shock me if there was going to be another twist in that saga before we get there. It wouldn't shock me at all.